difficulties. It's been a while. If you're joining us for the first time, welcome. If you're not, you probably were a part of Paper and Pajamas before. I've kind of revamped the book club, now called her book club, or actually book club for her. And so the gist of it is I want to continue to read inspirational books and things like that. I just, those are things that feed me, but I'm always going to be open to whatever books our members suggest. So this month we read Braving the Wilderness by Brene Brown, per the suggestion of my awesome neighbor and friend, Sarah. So I'm curious, how did you hear about the book?
So I learned about this book from my sister. She introduced me to Brene Brown, and she's usually the person that I, trust for suggestions for things. So she recommended Brene Brown, and I started out by just kind of watching a TED Talk here and there, and listening to a recording of her. And I felt very drawn to her messages, and they felt very empowering. So I thought I would read the book, and it's one of those things where it's hard to commit to reading a book too, because with kids and life getting in the way, but it just felt, you start and it's something that's hard to put down, because it really does just make you feel good about yourself. It makes you feel like, this is like, I felt like I needed permission for so many of these feelings that she talks about, and these and needed to feel justified in a lot of questions I've had, and just about how to feel part of something, or why I feel a certain way about my presence in the world. And I didn't feel, it taught me to really not be afraid to just be who I am, which sounds kind of hokey, but in a real way. It's like it's sometimes hard. We're scared of judgment. We're scared of consequence, and we're scared that people won't want to be our friends anymore, or whatever, if we say what we feel. But you realize that that's actually brave and courageous.
Yes.
To just let go and be honest.
Yeah.
About what you feel and what you think.
Yeah.
And it is so liberating.
Very liberating. Permission to be you. I feel like for so long I was a people pleaser, a perfectionist, and I cared so much about what people thought about everything that I did. And, even going back to the book club in the beginning, I wanted to just please everyone, but I was I had a vision, and I want to stay true to the vision, And so thank you for suggesting this book.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you.
I wasn't for what? For letting you be a part of this awesome.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want it any other way.
Yeah,
it's not a book club.
I'm glad you were open to it. I'm glad it was I feel like it's a good jumping off point.
Yeah.
Especially for the vibe, for what this club is about.
Yeah. And it's a continuum of, we can read anything. We'll evolve with it. We'll grow with it.
Yeah.
We'll be like the Golden Girls. Who isn't there?
Which one would I be?
I don't know, but I saw. Oh my gosh! So today when I was at Target, I saw this little kids book, and it was the Golden Girls kids book. I almost bought it for Mara. It was so cute. They were little tiny. Sorry, off subject now, but okay.
That can be our next
children's book section.
The Golden Girls children's book. That can be our next reading.
Okay. So I actually read her Daring Greatly book. It was at a time in my life where I took this huge career leap. I didn't know how ready I was going to be, but I still went for it. And I was already feeling self-doubt. I can be very self-deprecating in those ways where I'm just I'm not good enough. I'm suffering from imposter syndrome half the time when I do these things. But the book just reminded me, it's not the critic who counts. She shared the essay from Theodore Roosevelt where he's just it's not the critic who counts, or the one who, it's the one who stumbles, who continuously follows on. It was just beautiful. If I could print it and put it on my wall, I would. I highly recommend it. But that book just told me, like, it's okay to take big leaps. Like, don't have imposter syndrome. You're going to be in the ring. Like, you're the man in the arena. You're going to be the one in the ring who's getting dirty. And so anyone who has to say anything about it, it's peanut gallery noise at that point, because you're in the ring.
Mm-hmm.
So I really like Brene Brown. I'm super glad you suggested the book. And it was really good. And so I guess we'll get into it. Basically, I could sum this up, but I'm just going to read a little bit about what it is on the back. So, true belonging is not about fitting in, pretending, or making the people around us comfortable because that's safer. She goes in to share 4 practices of true belonging, and it requires us to be vulnerable, get uncomfortable, and learn how to be with people without sacrificing who we are and what we value. So, with all of that said, let's get into the questions and like what all of this means and what the book really taught us. So I'll start with you. How did the book make you feel?
It made me feel empowered. Honestly, I think that's probably the main takeaway. Empowered and a little bit more free, because I think I was kind of trying to figure things out, trying to figure out feelings and trying to figure out my place and what was,
I'm gonna just keep shifting in this chair until I'm really comfortable.
I know. I'm always moving. I'm a wiggler. Okay. I need like a fidget.
Right. Yeah. I want a chair to be your fidget.
Yeah, seriously. And it's funny that you said the thing about putting the thing on your wall, because I have been writing down quotes every time I listen to this book and this other one that I'm reading. I've been writing down quotes and writing like she has this whole acronym,
the breathing. Yeah.
And it's so powerful. And like a few other, like the inhale, exhale kind of analogy, and the, the whole idea about loneliness. Like there's so many, and she has this beautiful interaction with Maya Angelou in the book, where and she even has this moment of discovery where she, Maya Angelou, has this quote, and she is like, no, you're that quote is wrong, and then she finally kind of figures out. So she has this like moment of transformation, which is so amazing. And
how good was that story, by the way, too, when she went on the Oprah show and she's like, we're gonna do another take, and now Maya Angelou is gonna come out.
Oh, did you want to meet her?
She's like, of course.
She's like, let me like.
So it was just
yeah.
And you were mentioning to me another time that one of the things that you liked a lot about this book is how much she puts herself or tells her story. It really helps us to understand and get a picture of, like, I feel like from the author, like we need to understand why the author was the one to share and on this subject. Like she's already a researcher in her field of vulnerability and all of that, and she does great, but does it relate to you? And she proves that it kind of does.
Yeah, I think the thing that I love about it is that in some of the other books I've read in the same vein, it's like they tell stories of their clients. They tell stories of other people. But she often tells her own story. Her story as a child, the moment that she felt so disconnected from her family, when that was like the last place that she felt really safe and connected to, and the moment where she felt, and these kind of moments that we might think of as mundane as parents or trivial, and how profound they can affect our children, and how we have to be so mindful of that, even if we think it's not that big of a deal because it's something silly to us, but to them it is so important, and our response and our reaction has to, be supportive.
This is so true. I just had this exact thing happen while my family was here this weekend. One of my nieces didn't want to, well, she didn't really want to be in the picture, but my mother wanted to take the picture. And so, of course, like, what does a young child do when they don't want to be in the picture? They're not going to smile, or they're going to do something. And so my mother was just like, well, I'll just cut you out of the picture. And I was like, that's just hurtful to say. Like, I was literally said to her, I was like, this is how emotional trauma starts. Like, she's going to think she's a problem. She doesn't want to take pictures, especially if you're taking pictures all day. Some people don't want to do that.
Yeah.
And so exactly what you're saying, like, that's where you're like, do I just not belong in this family because I don't want to take pictures all the time? No, you do. You're able to have boundaries and say, I don't want to take pictures. That's okay too.
I don't want this right now.
Right.
Just like if, you go to your grandparents' house and grandpa wants to hug you, but you don't want to hug him, and then somebody forces you to. I mean, it's a different kind of thing because it's more like a touching and a boundary, a spatial boundary kind of thing. But the minute a child feels like they have some control and some anonymity and some like power over their own body and their own decisions that aren't gonna affect anybody in a life altering, it's not the end of the world. Like sometimes, and I am so guilty of this with Isaac, I know, because he can be very challenging. But if
Isaac's your son?
Yes, my 10-year-old.
Okay.
If I sometimes kind of loosen the reins and I'll be like, okay, I'm gonna give you this one because I'm gonna let you, I feel like you deserve that. You deserve to have a little bit of say. Like there's certain places that, I'm not going to give, but in certain situations, if you allow them that, the next time they're not going to fight back so hard. They're going to maybe want to be more part of that picture. They're going to want to give you that hug because they're going to feel safe. So, and I think even myself, I find myself in those situations as an adult. Sometimes I feel like I would be happier doing this if I felt like it was for me, it wasn't for somebody else to make them happy.
Oh, that is such like an ongoing, so real struggle that like I experience, and it's hard. Yeah. Those moments are really hard. Like I completely relate without like going into details because I know we know, and I know y'all know if you know what we know.
And if you don't know,
now you know. Cling, 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 cling. Yeah. So I guess how the book made me feel very similar to what you were saying. Like I think sometimes I struggle with finding my voice in challenging situations. Like I'm very courageous. I have no problem standing alone, but I think sometimes I go too far in that direction where I'm so courageous to like, well, then if no one wants to understand in my opinion, I'll just be right over here. I'm always open and willing to listen, but I get really comfortable in those spaces of aloneness sometimes. And I've had to push myself to break down those walls that I've created because of it's not okay for me to have these feelings or it's not okay for me to have these beliefs. But the book reminds me it is okay for me to have these beliefs. It's also okay to let people in to what those beliefs are and to not feel like I'm wrong or you're wrong, but to agree to disagree and still love one another because we can do that. And I guess the book made me feel safe. I think that's the word that you used too, safe.
Yeah. I think so. There's so many salient points in this book about just things that if we all kind of could wrap our heads around, would just make people so much.
I know. One of the questions at the end of this is, who's this book for? Humanity.
Yeah.
Like humanity. Yeah. So
there's this great part about leather, which is funny because you're wearing
I'm wearing leather. I'm going to go to the next question, which is about parts that stood out to you since.
Oh, goodness. So many.
You were talking about leather. There was a part about leather in the book?
Yeah. Okay. It's towards the end. I have to do most of my book reading on, through audio.
You're so good.
I'm in the car a lot for my job. And I think it's easier for me to internalize the messages. And I often will like pause and then I'll try to like write things down at red lights or not, but
don't do that. I didn't hear that. At least you're at a red light.
So there's this one part in the book where she talks about how we spend so much time complaining about things like, I don't know, like her perfume smells so strong and I'm allergic to it, or and it's just annoying, or I'm trying to think of some other examples. If little things that are just kind of out of our control.
Yeah.
And we have these kind of silly it's like a silly underlying message. Like if we could just coat the whole world in leather and kind of be sheltered from these uncomfortable feelings and these uncomfortable moments and things that are irritating, that are kind of just silly.
Yeah.
And instead the message is just wear leather shoes. So it's like, instead of feeling like you need to shut out the world, just create your own kind of buffer or be more accepting, rather than like feeling that you have to change everything around you.
That's good. That's rich. I must have missed that leather analogy, but I like that because
it's an unabridged version. So maybe there's parts that are missing.
Oh, that might be because I mean, I didn't read the acknowledgments or anything at the end like that, but I definitely didn't see that part. And I'm opposite to you. I have to physically read books. I'm horrible with listening to books. Like the last book club we had in my old version of Paper and Pajamas, we read like 4 books in a month. And I'm like, how do you guys read all of these? And we audio. And I'm like, my eyes need to see it for it to stick. I need to be highlighting I need to smell the essence of the book. Like,
I wish I could. I think
visual.
Because full disclosure, recently diagnosed with adult ADHD, and reading has always been a struggle. It's like you read a sentence and you realize that you have no idea what you just read. You read words, but you didn't internalize the point. So you reread it 87 times, and getting through a book, like it would have taken me months to get through.
Wow. Well, thank goodness that there are pretty much audio versions for everything.
And I would have never discovered that if I wasn't in the car all the time. I didn't realize that audiobooks was going to be better for me. But then I was like, oh my gosh, I can.
You're brave in the wilderness.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And I even learned that like writing my notes for work and everything, I do better if I just speak it out loud rather than writing it. So it's all about learning what works.
That's true. And there was something, because you guys know, like we recorded this and had no sound. So this is like a pre-recording. Something we had mentioned in the other recording was, I think a lot of what Braving the Wilderness is trying to do is say like the world is a wilderness, but we don't have to be wild. We don't have to be animals out there. We can be civil. And so to, continue on with this question, that was something that stood out to me a lot about in this book was civility. Oh my gosh. It's almost non-existent these days.
Yeah. And it's with there's this whole section with the politics, and that is
that was
really tricky for me.
Yeah.
Really. And
I know. And
so I feel like, everybody, I heard so many people say things like, I could never be friends with somebody who likes a certain politician because that means that they support, doing awful, evil things to people that I care about. And then vice versa, like, you shouldn't judge, this should not be how you're defining friendships and relationships but it is so, it's such a tricky thing.
Yeah.
Because the results of and the consequences of supporting certain people can be so effective, like so negatively have negative consequences to people that you love and care about and things that you value. So I found it a very tricky thing to navigate. And what I try to instill in Isaac is, because he's, there's some kids in his class that really annoy him, and he gets really, he'll come home and he'll be like, I can't deal with this person, and he gets so mad. But I always try to say, and I know it's easier said than done, but I say, maybe he just doesn't know how to ask somebody to be their friend. Maybe they're having trouble at home.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they said that to you because they're having problems with their own self-esteem.
Mm-hmm.
You have to consider that the reason these people or kids are behaving this way, their purpose in life isn't just to make you miserable. They're trying to find a way to feel safe and feel comfortable. So maybe just stop for a minute and think about it, and remove yourself from the situation if you need to.
And you say it so well. Like, I would almost sum it up to be like, maybe they're different. And I think that can be like, that's something I have to remind myself of too when I'm in these conversations. It's easy for me to want to create a narrative of what could be going on with the other person, but it's like, I don't know it all. Like, maybe they're just different. Well, because they totally are different, but if I remind myself they're just different, that's where it's like, okay, I don't always have to understand, but I can acknowledge their humanness. And she talks a little bit about that too in the book, where she was just briefly talking about, I think it was just humanness and what makes us human. Because again, when we talk about the wilderness, we're dehumanizing each other, which is why she's like, we're out here in the wilderness. We say such rude, disrespectful things to each other these days, especially in the political climate that you're talking about too, that we just forget that we're all just, different. So without like going on and on about the same thing.
Yeah, I think, there's a whole chapter about dehumanization, which is what creates, what allows, people to have power over you to control the way you think about certain factions of people. And it's frightening, the power of like the media and politicians who want you to believe certain things, because it's so easy to, the more you hear something, it's like the more you hear, what's the quote that was going around, like, if you say a lie a 1,000 times, it becomes the truth, or something like that. So if you just keep drilling this idea home that these people are bad and evil and wrong, then suddenly it's true. And then it becomes easy to take them down and to be,
And she talks about that in her book. So I appreciated the excerpt she took from Bill Bishop's Sorting Ourselves Out. Like, that whole section was like, yes. She basically said we're in the biggest sort ever, where we're like, you're either with us or against us. And I underlined this, like-minded. So tells the story of how we've geographically, politically, and even spiritually sorted ourselves into like-minded groups in which we silence dissent, grow more extreme in our thinking, and consume only facts that support our beliefs, etc., etc. And I'm like, man, that rings so true. There's so many, like, sorting ourselves out. You go on Facebook, there's a group for everything. What that is sorting yourselves out already.
And everything has to be a fight. So it's no longer a discussion. I mean, especially in politics. Like, it's these people that call themselves adults that are trying to run our country can't have a civil conversation because everybody is just so stubborn and so, like, set in their ways and so proud. So it's going to be our downfall.
It will be, until seriously everyone reads or understands and wants to take heed to, like, what this book is trying to do, which is be like, we can all get along. Like, I know I sound so kumbaya, but we can, if we just accept that we're different. And so the next question is, how did this book change you, if it did? I guess I can start with that one, since so I feel like this book changed me in helping me understand what has kind of been the result of, like, some of those difficult conversations or experiences I've had with other people that are maybe on the opposite end of a group, or like, if they're just different in their beliefs, in their faith, or in whatever. It's helped me to understand what might be underlying. Because I think I'm like, honestly, I feel like I'm pretty open when it comes to others in general. Like I'm open-minded. I usually don't want to be like push myself, my beliefs on someone else. But I feel like I've been on the receiving end a lot of the time on others doing that to me. And it's made me kind of have more understanding as to like why others might be that way. There's like a self-awareness that we can all use, and like which this book reminds us, because I'm not always perfect on that either. Like there are some discussions I'm like, I won't even broach the subject because I'm like, I don't know it all on it, but I know I feel strongly about it. So yeah, I feel like it helped me better understand.
Yeah. I think it does. I think what it did for me is make me really pause and try to understand the other side. And I think I was a little bit like this before, and even maybe to a fault, because I've always been somebody who who goes beyond just trying to see it from other people's perspective, but also makes excuses. So
for the other people,
yeah. So excuse me. So like,
okay. Do you want me to take your cup?
Oh no! I just the bubbles. No, even people who have been really traumatizing in my life, I tend to find reasons and excuses for that, and reasons are one thing, excuses are another.
Yeah.
So and that makes it really hard to cope with certain tragedies, so like or certain trauma, because you can't just acknowledge what was done to you and then deal with it. You also are like, but in a way it also gives you that empathy to say to maybe achieve forgiveness. I don't know, maybe it's a good thing because it helps you get to forgiveness faster, but at the expense of being the casualty in the process. So it's like, it's really tricky. But honestly, I think the biggest change in me will be, and has started to be, my parenting. And I think, having preteens in my life
that's a huge,
that's,
I mean, they're really independent. Like,
they're so fragile. So fragile, and they don't let you know it. You just have to know it, and if you don't know it, then
God bless you.
You have to know it.
Oh.
So. And it's just, you're gonna have these.
I know. I think
same thing.
I know. Like, so we both have children who are also really young, too. But for me, 2 is like where I started. So my son is 2, and so there are things that older parents or parents of older kids can see that I'm doing right now. Like right now, it's okay for me to sort of like, you need to eat this because like I need you to grow and be healthy. But a parent who's raised a child who they didn't force feed, not to like really go there, but they're like, they're gonna survive and they'll be okay. I haven't learned that lesson yet.
Yeah, and that's okay. And it's not gonna, it's not gonna ruin anybody's life.
But you think it would, and that's the thing is like, because we're just, again, in a culture where it's just so easy to say, well, this is how I do it, so you should do it this way too.
Right.
It's like, no, we can do things differently and still both be okay. Like, is anyone being harmed at the end of the day? Like, I don't know. I kind of go down that rabbit hole before I abandon my own beliefs.
Right.
So that made me think, though, like in some of the things you were just saying, have you actually abandoned your beliefs because of your ability to sort of try to take on like someone else's reasoning as to why they've done what they've done?
I think the problem that I've had for most of my adult life is not.
I think my foot's gonna fall asleep. Let me just being honest here.
Yeah. I think that my biggest struggle has always been not having my own beliefs, not having anything that I feel really like attached to. I've just kind of always just kind of attached myself to other people's You're like, I'm like, that
I
sounds
appreciate
good.
how honest you are.
I know,
about that,
and it's I know it's like
oh, that's so vulnerable.
it's probably the wine, but
can I have some of that wine?
helps.
That's
no,
some
but
good
I think
wine.
it took a long time for me to get to a point where I felt safe.
Your own identity, comfortable with your own identity.
Yes.
Amen.
And that was huge. I think that was like a really profound kind of transformation for me. And it's still in process, obviously, but I think like, even for example, like silly things, like, and I still struggle with this, like making decisions about things, like what to watch on TV or what movie to watch or what to have for dinner. I hate making those decisions. And like, I always give Robert, my fiance, I always give him the remote, because I'm like, I don't want to decide, because it's just too much pressure. Like, what if it's something that you don't like, which, whatever, like, we watch the same things anyways. But I
feel like it's so dark in this. Is it dark?
It's a little dark. Yeah.
I'm gonna adjust the lighting. I shall edit that part out. Oh no, we'll hear that.
Oh yeah. Maybe this.
See. Oh, you know what? I'm gonna turn on the kitchen light. I think that'll help.
Maybe we just, if we're a little closer.
Okay.
Too.
We'll get this lighting together eventually.
Yeah, we'll have to.
You're right. Maybe
higher and closer.
There. Okay, higher and closer. I've got books. Let's see.
This is the trout. Oh, look, Stephen King's It is pretty big.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what she said.
That's a good one. Okay, can you lift the laptop? Okay.
There we go.
That should hopefully. And then move this even closer too. Okay. All right. So. Yes.
I love how she talks about how she involves her kids, and they have all these like little like mantras, sort of like they say, did you remember the part about the lonely feeling? Like when you go into a home of like a friend and you're like, I'm having that lonely feeling, and it basically means that you don't feel you're surrounded by people with alive with connection. And that totally makes sense. Like, I've totally felt that, like, you're surrounded by people and it just feels very
and you don't know
cold.
why. Yes.
Yeah. I mean,
that's hard.
And even in my own relationships, I think there's times when you're feeling that lonely feeling, like when you're feeling like, something maybe,
like you're not being
ugly happened, or
or
you're feeling like you did something wrong, or like you feel like they're upset with you.
I'm yes.
They're not telling you why. Gosh, so why is it all of a sudden? It was good for a minute.
Let me see. Maybe if I lower this some. Let me try that. Okay, let's see.
I didn't notice that the question was like rolling across the bottom.
It's so fun, yeah. Okay. Let's see if that helps. Guess you gotta have this light right on you, huh?
There you go.
Okay, let's see if I can. Whoa. Okay.
Sure.
We'll try it. And see if I don't disappear again into the bookshelf.
Yeah, it might like
keep doing
like when it plays back, maybe it'll
lighten up.
Who knows?
That's okay. The benefits of being chocolate. No, I'm just kidding. Chocolate thunder. Imagine if this were a podcast.
Oh my gosh.
The nice thing about the video is that everyone can see whatever's happening, but that's what makes it so fun for me. It's like it's like really truly belonging to a book club. No aesthetics, like it is what it is. You can't see me, and that just is gonna be what it's gonna be.
I can see you. I think
it's this corner. Let me see here.
I think honestly, everything just needs to be closer.
Okay. Let me just
make the light.
I feel like maybe this light is distracting it. Maybe.
What if this light was, like, is there a way to, is it touch screen?
Oh, it is.
Sometimes if you tap on a spot, it'll,
Oh,
what'd I do?
We're just closer.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay. I don't want to spend.
Put the light closer.
I might
to
try.
you.
Oh,
look at that.
Brighter.
Look at that.
Okay.
I mean, you said you can edit it anyways. Nobody's
There.
watching right now. So.
Yeah, this is a great first run. Stay bright.
Okay. That's a good takeaway message. Stay bright, everybody.
Stay bright. Okay. All right. I like this closer thing. This helps. So let's go to the next question. What was your biggest takeaway from this book? So many things.
I know. It's so hard to pick one.
Are you in frame? Let me get you one in frame.
Okay. So one of the definitions I wrote down that she came up with, it's in chapter 2 at minute 16:48. If you're interested. It's the definition of true belonging. And I really love this. It's the spiritual practice of believing in and belonging to yourself so deeply that you can share your most authentic self with the world and find sacredness in being part of something and standing alone in the wilderness. So not only do you feel safe being with people and being pure and raw and who you are, but you can also be alone. Yeah. And know and say what you believe in a group of people, knowing that there's a chance that they're going to reject what you feel and what you say, but still stand behind it because it is true to who you are.
And I feel like that's where the courage part of this whole book comes into play. Like you can't brave the wilderness if you're not courageous enough to stand alone.
And integrity. The way she defines integrity is choosing what's right over what's fun, fast, or easy. That is really tricky. Yeah. And I think that's something that's also really hard to navigate with kids. Because what child is going to choose? They're going to always choose what's fun, fast, or easy. Yes. And that is really, that's something as a parent that you have to really drive home. And I think even as a parenting to kids, it's so easy to just say yes and give them what they want, but it's not always right. Yeah. So that's exactly what I highlighted for my biggest takeaway. Sometimes stand alone in our decisions and beliefs despite our fear of criticism and rejection. Like I feel like I've always been one who has been okay with saying exactly what it is that I feel, and I may be ostracized for this, but I'll take it. But it just reminded me that permission is always going to be there. Yeah. And I'll be fine. Yeah. I'll be fine. You'll feel good about yourself. Because I've kept I've kept my integrity. I've been true to who I am. You can't, how are you going to truly belong somewhere if you show up as your fake self? Right. Like we were talking about identity switching or conforming to whomever. If you're always fitting in everywhere, where do you really belong? Yeah. 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 And that brings us to another point is this whole, there's a part in the book where she talks about talking to teenagers and asking them. And I actually brought this to dinner tonight at the dinner table. I asked the kids what's the difference between fitting in and belonging? Ooh, what did they say? And neither one of them really gave me any. And Nico was like, I don't really know what you mean by that. Now I want to answer the question. Yeah, what's your answer? Okay, what's the difference between fitting in and belonging? You can fit in a costume at a Halloween party, or let's just say a specific costume. You go to a Halloween party, everyone's wearing the same thing. Easy to fit in there. But if your costume isn't
who you really are, then you don't really belong there.
Yeah.
That's how I would kind of.
Or if you don't feel comfortable.
If you don't feel, yeah, like absolutely.
Yeah. I think one of the kids in the book said something. The kids had these amazing answers.
I love it.
One said it's fitting in is kind of like they don't doing what everybody else is doing, and them not really caring if you're there or not. And belonging is more of like a welcoming feeling, and not having to change who you are to fit in. I don't know. It was so much more articulate. These like teenage kids were so articulate. And then there was a whole, like the other part of it was like, okay, well, it's one thing to not fit in with your peers, but like, what about when you feel like you don't fit into your own family? So that was another piece of it too, which was really like devastating to listen to. Like when your parents have these expectations for you to be an athlete or a cheerleader or
her cheerleader story was heartbreaking, because I've gone through that, like
the rejection.
Yes.
And it is profound. You don't forget that feeling,
because then you end up going around searching for that belonging.
Yeah. And sometimes in the wrong place.
Which
she did. She talks about like she got into, partying hard and, whatever, just to kind of feel that and feel that feeling, but also escape that feeling.
Yeah. Oh, such a great book. So the next question, did you detect any bias in the way the information was presented?
I didn't really. I mean, I think what she did so beautifully was acknowledge. I mean, I think it's easy to tell like what side of certain issues she would be on.
That was kind of hard for me. Like there were a few times in the book where I was like, oh, well, of course.
Yeah.
Let me go ahead and put this down. But I kept going.
Yeah, and I think she also made a point to say that it's important to not dehumanize the other side,
right?
Regardless of their beliefs. Like
that was so good to say, and which is why I was like, I need to keep reading this, because who am I if I can't get through a book because you said one or two things that make me feel like you're welcome to be on the side, but if you've got something good to say, you've got something good to say.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I thought I did, and when I got to those points in the book, I highlighted them so I could be like, aha! Maybe I had an agenda. But quickly, she followed it up with another example, and she was able to kind of balance the scales and say, look, we've all, on all sides of this experience, have done something or said something wrong, so some bias, but quickly cleaned up by equalizing it, I think.
Yeah, like kind of like it's not productive to, like she said something about like having a mocking picture of one politician. Well, if you're going to say that it's wrong to do it to one side, then it doesn't make it okay to do it to the other side.
Yes.
So like you can have your beliefs and you can have your feelings, but to attach some sort of mocking or dehumanizing type of behavior to that, it turns it into something less valuable and less poignant.
Yes. And honestly, what you mentioned, emotions, that was something huge for me. I've noticed in the wilderness, like when things get emotional on either side, people stop hearing you.
Yeah.
And she had mentioned that like a lot of the time we can't be in the wilderness, or we're unable to really hear the other side when emotions erupt. And this is so true. So true. Facts get thrown out. And she mentioned something like that. When someone becomes emotional, there are no more facts in the situation.
Yeah.
And I was like, yes, that's very accurate.
Yeah. Instead of saying, well, this is why I feel this way. And, we agree to disagree. You say, well, you're just stupid.
I almost feel like the book was, it just was so relevant for the times we're in right now.
Yes.
I was like, oh my gosh, if there's anywhere in this book that people can apply, it's all of it right now. So let's see. The next one, which event in the book was most similar to something you've personally experienced? So I think even just between you and I, like, we've had those conversations. Like, if we're honest, and if anyone's watching, like, if you're honest, you've definitely, if you're still friends with the person, you've had that, like, good for you. You braved the wilderness. Like, we passed.
Yeah, high five. Wait. Yeah, we definitely, full disclosure, we have very different fundamental beliefs about the world and about life and about just, the way we operate. But somehow here we are.
And that's and that's exactly what she wants for us, and that's what we want for everyone, for like us to still see the humanity in each other and say it's okay for you to believe what you believe, and
you're still valuable.
You're still valuable, exactly.
Yeah. We have something to offer each other aside from the things. I mean,
I wasn't wearing a MAGA hat, if that's what.
Thank God. I don't know if I would have made it through the door, but I think there's so many things. Like we believe in community, we believe in village, we believe in values, and we believe in nurturing and helping each other and helping people.
Right.
And I think that's enough.
Yeah.
For us. Yeah. I think it's enough.
Yeah, if everyone was homogenous, like, what would we learn?
Yeah.
From one another? Like, we cannot be the same. We would never grow. We would never learn.
Yeah.
We would never evolve.
Yeah. Right.
So, I can appreciate the differences in all of us.
Mm-hmm.
What did you like least? You see, I said least. What did you like least about this book? If anything,
must have been paying your rent.
Where it was due.
If it wasn't longer. No,
I know, right? Yeah.
I don't know. I guess I should have thought about that one more.
I don't
there's something.
Because it's always good to, like, I just think the only thing I did not love was, so in some of her examples, right, she would use an extreme example of like one political party and then use like a very mild one.
Okay.
Which I was like, all right, we could have taken two hot like moments and put them. That was the only thing, is I was like, if we're gonna talk about, let's be all the way fair about how we're presenting the people on both ends of the spectrum in this book.
Okay, fair enough. I don't know. I don't know if I have if I can name something. I mean, I think it helps because a lot of the stuff that she gels with, I gel with. I think I could say what makes me uncomfortable.
That I want to hear.
A lot of things in this book, in practice, I know make me uncomfortable. Honestly, boundaries make me uncomfortable because I don't like to be worried about overstepping boundaries. So I feel like I have in the past always been drawn to people with very little boundaries because it just makes me feel a little bit less anxious about making that mistake and overstepping or saying the wrong thing or doing the wrong thing. So it's fine. I think it's something that I need to get comfortable with,
I'll be honest, like I'm a lot like you in that I've usually found people with a lack of boundaries, and in my current, relationship, marriage, and I've got someone with clear boundaries, and that is hard because I'm used to being able to say what I want to say and moving on. Can't do that now. And so it's healthy that now I'm sort of being forced to deal with those kinds of boundaries. Yeah. And because I've always been really good with having my own boundaries, but I haven't been forced to respect someone else's boundaries.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to just be around people who are just kind of like,
whatever. I love it. Whatever.
Yeah,
that's what they sound like.
It's and I think, you know, anxiety is such a big struggle in this in our generation. Maybe I don't think it's ending. I think and the generations behind us are also because you know, everything is just such a quick fix. Like, we can't handle negative feelings.
Absolutely, yes.
And we don't want to see our kids have negative feelings. So we try to like buffer everything and cushion everything. And I'm you know, I'm totally guilty of this too, but the best thing we can do is like allow them to feel. And that at the end of the book, or at least the end of the audio book, she talks about letting your kids go into the wilderness, and not, because if they don't experience the wilderness without constant like, you know, cleaning up their messes and cushioning their falls, then they're never going to be able to survive functionally in the wilderness without you, which is a very real possibility. They're going to have to survive without you.
I resonated deeply with that book. So one of my stepdaughters is going through bullying right now, and it's hard because like, I'm like, I can't imagine like my son going through that, or any child for that matter going through that. But as a parent, you don't want to ever see that, and you want to be like, remove them from the situation. You want to do everything you can to protect them. So it's like the best you can do is give them the skills to go in the wild. But it's like you're saying, they got to be out there in the wilderness.
And sometimes you don't know what are the skills?
Sometimes. Oh my gosh.
It's excruciating. It's excruciating to not be able to fix certain things and just be able to like change their reality and be like,
oh, I have a great example.
Just pull them out.
Yeah. So when my family were in town, you know, my son Ethan met his one of his cousins for the first time. We met all the cousins at the same time, but one cousin was 3 while he's 2. So that one was the baby of the family, and Ethan's the baby here. So there was a lot of rough play and pushing. Like, the 3-year-old was shoving Ethan and taking things from him and hitting him. And I was just like, I was thankful that it was like a family, so that I could be like, ha, don't do that. Like, I was able to at least step in and do something. But there were some instances, and I recorded like one of these standoffs and thank goodness she has all of the toys, like all of the little bikes and stuff. Everybody wanted a bike for themselves. So we borrowed 2 from Sarah. So one of the standoffs was over the bike, and the 3-year-old just kept standing in front of Ethan like this. You're not going. If I'm not riding it, you're not going anywhere. And it was just hard to watch because he's looking at me like, Mom, what are you going to do? And I'm looking at him like, you're going to have to go through this. Like, I wish I could fix it, but what are you going to do?
Yeah.
So hard to do.
Yeah, it's so hard. It's hard to say, figure it out, kids. It's really hard not to be like, this is what needs to happen here. And it's but you're only helping them in those moments.
Right. So, okay. Oh, such a good conversation. Would you read another book by this author, or have you?
I have. I haven't read Daring Greatly. I haven't even actually heard about that one. Okay. But her most recent one, which I can't
Atlas of the Heart.
Atlas of the Heart. Okay. I haven't finished it, but there's even some great excerpts from that about, like, child rearing and her experiences in her business and just in life that have really been life-changing, like just kind of feeling empowered again to like and giving me the fuel and the fire in me to want to be a better parent and a better person and a better,
you're such a great
part of this community. Thank you for saying
absolutely
that. Thank you for saying
yes.
that. I struggle with that a lot, and it's very challenging now that I'm in a relationship where our parenting styles are so different, and trying to navigate that is a whole other ball game when there's 3 kids involved that have been raised 2 of them were raised totally differently and have totally different needs, and it's just really a struggle.
Yeah.
So I think having these like anecdotes and these lessons that I learned from these books is like it gives me like a foundation, I think, and makes me feel more secure in my choices and more able to kind of base my choices around a fundamental idea of my goal as a parent. So, and as a person, just being in a relationship, being in a community, having, boundaries with friends, and making sure I'm, not allowing myself to be mistreated or, walked on.
Yeah.
So
that's a lot. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, sure.
I love to hear from you're so, like, as you speak so well and so eloquently and so deep.
You.
I know, I'm just full of that.
It just flows.
It does flow.
I've never been in like a thing like this.
I love it, and that's like,
it feels so good.
I seriously, reading is therapy for me, and it's even more therapy. You can like unpack it with your friends.
Yeah,
you like, oh, that's
with
so
like-minded. I mean, that can hear what you have to say, and you know that they get it. That's sometimes hard to find.
Like, I might not have a response back, but I'm like, I hear you.
Yeah,
like, and I'm like, that's what I needed to hear too.
Yeah.
So I absolutely read another book by Brene, and I would, continue to read her books. Like I said, like, I don't know if we're going to continue to always do self-help books. Like, I would love to explore novels that even had lessons in them. And so I like recommendations like that too, because those are sometimes just as rich. Reading a story and being like, okay, I get what they were trying to convey through this story. So, but yeah, I'll read it. I'll even give you Daring Greatly, and I'll read Atlas of the Heart too sometime. I'd love to do a book exchange.
Totally. I love biographies. I love real life stuff. I always love real life stuff.
Do you have a biography that's out right now that you want to read?
There was an interview. I don't know if she has a biography, but if Viola Davis has a biography,
I feel like
because she interviews her in the book, and she talks a lot about her. She had a really traumatic childhood.
Yeah.
And she's such an amazing person. I think I would love to.
She turned her life around a lot to become who she is.
Yeah. And even Maya Angelou, I feel like she has so many beautiful. I
know Why the Caged Bird Sings.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I've checked that out.
Yeah. Got a library.
What is the quote? I didn't have it written down, but I found it, and I opened it on my. Here it is. You are only free when you realize you belong no place. You belong every place, no place at all. The price is high. The reward is great. And that's the quote that Brene was like, initially was like, you're wrong. You're wrong. But then she kind of figured out what the underlying meaning was, is that you belong everywhere and nowhere all at once. Because you don't need to belong. I mean, we do, but you don't need to search for acceptance, because it's just, we're here because we belong. Yeah. It's kind of like that whole thing, like you're picking everything else up. Your home is where your family is. Like, it doesn't have to be an actual physical building, but it's like with the people that you're with. So it's like the same idea. Like, wherever you are, you belong there because you accept that you belong there. It doesn't matter if other people believe you belong there. You just do. Because you do.
Because I do. And I'm coming because I belong here. So
yes.
Would you recommend this book?
I think I would.
I think I would
I think
too.
I did.
How many stars would you give it?
Out of 5? Oh, 5 out of 5.
5 out of 5.
No hesitation.
I love it.
I love you, Brene.
We love you, Brene. You're really encouraging, and you'll probably never see this, but on the odd chance that you do, keep doing what you're doing. Yes. All right. Well,